The border's edge. Captain Naraves stood at the viewport of the celestial seeker, watching as the stars streaked by in hyperlane transit. Her vessel, a sleek exploration ship of the Solarian Confederacy, represented the pinnacle of her people's technology. Sensors capable of mapping stellar phenomena from light years away, engines that could outrun most military vessels, and shield systems that had protected her through 3 different radiation storms. Yet for all its technological marvels, Nara felt a creeping unease as they approached their destination. "Captain, we're approaching the designated coordinates," said Lieutenant Thrix, her navigator. The Vixilian's multiple eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of nervousness among his kind. "Human space begins approximately 2 light minutes beyond this point." Nara nodded, her silver-scaled skin reflecting the blue glow of the command console. "Take us out of hyperspace, Lieutenant. Standard approach, minimal energy signature." The ship shuddered slightly as it returned to normal space. Before them stretched an unremarkable section of void. A few distant stars, the faint glow of a nebula at the edge of visual range, but nothing that would suggest a boundary. Nothing except the complete absence of any traffic. In the 300 cycles since humanity had burst onto the galactic stage, they had established themselves as a paradox. Their expansion had been explosive at first, aggressive, determined, almost reckless. Then, without explanation, they had stopped. Their territory encompassed 47 star systems, and beyond that invisible line, no human ships ventured. More significantly, no alien ships returned if they crossed into human space uninvited. The Solarian High Council had finally authorized this mission after decades of debate. Their directive to Nara was clear: approach the border, establish communication if possible, and determine why the humans had isolated themselves. The scientific explanation was the mission's stated purpose, but Nara knew the political reality. The Confederacy feared what they didn't understand, and humans were at the top of that list. "All passive sensors at maximum," Nara ordered. "Begin recording all frequencies." Science Officer Elara moved to her station, the translucent appendages that served as her hands dancing over the controls. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual quantum fluctuations at the boundary. It's as if space itself is different on the other side." "Explain," Nara demanded. "I can't," Elara admitted, her voice tinged with professional frustration. "The readings contradict our understanding of physics. It's like the boundary isn't just political, it's physical." Nara was about to order a probe launch when Communications Officer Zale straightened abruptly. "Captain, we're being hailed. Point source transmission, directly ahead." Nara felt her heart rate increase. On screen, the view screen flickered, and the image of a human appeared. They were pale-skinned with dark hair cut close to their scalp, wearing a gray uniform with minimal insignia. "Solarian vessel, this is Commander Chen of the Earth Defense Force Vessel Sentinel. You are approaching restricted space. State your purpose." The human's voice was level, neither hostile nor particularly friendly. Nara stepped forward, adopting the diplomatic posture her species used for first meetings. "Commander Chen, I am Captain Naraves of the Solarian exploration vessel Celestial Seeker. We are on a scientific mission authorized by the Confederacy High Council to study the boundary region of human space." Chen's expression remained neutral. "The boundary is off-limits to non-human vessels without specific authorization from the Earth Alliance." "We seek only to understand," Nara said. "For 3 centuries, your people have maintained this boundary without explanation. The gap in knowledge creates fear, Commander. Fear leads to misunderstanding, and misunderstanding leads to conflict." Chen finished, the first hint of emotion crossing their face. "I'm familiar with Solarian diplomatic philosophy, Captain, but some knowledge comes at too high a price." A light flashed on Elara's console. "Captain, I'm detecting a massive energy buildup from the human vessel. Their weapons systems are activating." Nara kept her gaze steady on the human. "Is this how Earth conducts diplomacy, Commander? With threats?" Chen shook their head. Not a threat, Captain. A precaution. Your sensors are probing too deeply into the boundary layer. That can have consequences. As if on cue, the ship trembled. Alarms blared across the bridge. Gravitational anomaly forming off our starboard bow. Fricks reported, his voice rising with concern. It's not natural, Captain. The space-time curvature is increasing exponentially. On the view screen, Chen was issuing commands to someone off-screen. The human vessel had positioned itself between the celestial seeker and the anomaly. Captain Vess, pull back immediately, Chen ordered, all pretense of diplomatic niceties gone. Your sensors have disturbed something. We'll contain it, but you need to retreat to safe distance. Disturbed what? Nara demanded. Chen's expression darkened. The reason we maintain the boundary. Now move your ship. The anomaly pulsed, releasing a wave of energy that washed over both vessels. The celestial seeker shuddered violently, systems flickering. Through the view screen, Nara saw something impossible. A tear in space itself, a wound in reality that should not exist. And within that tear, movement, shapes that defied comprehension. Geometries that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space. Full reverse thrust. Nara ordered, get us away from that thing. The human vessel moved with surprising agility, positioning itself directly before the anomaly. A beam of concentrated energy, like nothing Nara had ever seen, lanced from the sentinel into the heart of the tear. The effect was immediate. The wound began to close, reality knitting itself back together. Chen's face reappeared on the view screen, now streaked with sweat. This is why, Captain. This is why no one crosses into human space uninvited. What was that? Nara asked, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her fear. We call them breaches, Chen replied after a pause. Tears in the fabric between here and elsewhere. They first appeared when we pushed our expansion too far, too fast. We discovered that certain regions of space are thin. The boundaries between dimensions aren't as solid as they should be. And what comes through those tears? Chen's expression was grim. Nothing that belongs in our reality. We've contained them within human space, established monitoring stations throughout our territory. We're the wall, Captain. The only thing standing between those things and the rest of the galaxy. Nara felt a chill run through her. Why keep this secret? The Confederacy, the Galactic Council. We could help. Could you? Chen asked, genuine curiosity in their voice. Your people have lived in relative harmony with the cosmos. You expanded slowly, cautiously. Humans, we raced to the stars. We pushed and tore and forced our way into space. We made the tears worse before we understood what they were. But the Alliance Council decided centuries ago, Chen continued. This is our mistake, our burden to bear. We established the boundary to protect others as much as to protect ourselves. The breaches are drawn to certain types of energy, certain thought patterns. Your arrival just proved it. Your sensors, your curiosity, it called to them. Nara looked at the readings from the now closed anomaly. The data was unlike anything she had ever seen, defying the laws of physics as she understood them. If Chen was telling the truth, return to your people, Captain Vess, Chen said. Tell them that human space remains closed, not out of hostility, but necessity. And if you value the safety of your crew and your confederacy, don't come back. The transmission cut. The human vessel turned and accelerated away, vanishing into the darkness of their forbidden territory. Nara stood in silence for several moments, processing everything she had witnessed. Finally, she turned to her crew. Set course back to Solarian space, she ordered. But even as the words left her mouth, she knew she would return. The mystery was too great, the implications too vast. Humans weren't isolationists or conquerors. They were guardians, and she needed to know what they were guarding against. What lies beyond? 3 months after their encounter at the boundary of human space, the celestial seeker drifted silently through an uncharted stellar debris field at the fringes of the Calamar sector. Captain Nerves had not returned directly to Solarian space as she had been instructed. Instead, she had filed a deliberately vague report requesting extended mission parameters to investigate unusual stellar phenomena. The High Council, intrigued by her preliminary findings but wary of antagonizing humans, had granted her request with one condition: avoid direct contact with human vessels. Status of the stealth systems? Nora asked, her voice hushed despite the fact that sound couldn't travel through space. Operating at 94% efficiency, Captain, replied Engineer Corvus, but they won't fool dedicated scans at close range. Nara nodded. They don't need to. We're not approaching the same boundary point. According to the data we gathered, the human patrol patterns concentrate around specific coordinates. What she didn't say, what she couldn't admit to her crew, was that she was deliberately seeking a breach. The glimpse she had caught of what lay beyond reality had haunted her dreams for months. The scientist in her needed to understand. The explorer in her needed to see. Sensors are detecting unusual quantum patterns 2 light minutes ahead, Allura reported. Similar to what we observed near the human boundary, but with significant variations. Take us closer, minimal power to engines, Nara ordered. Maintain passive scanning only. The ship glided forward, silent as a ghost. The debris field provided excellent cover, the remnants of an ancient asteroid mining operation long abandoned. As they approached the coordinates Allura had indicated, the ship's instruments began to behave erratically. Captain, the quantum fluctuations are intensifying, Allura said, her voice tight with concern. Something's happening ahead. Through the view screen, Nara saw it, a shimmer in space, like heat rising from desert sands. As they watched, the shimmer coalesced, forming a visible distortion approximately 50 meters across. Is that a breach? Lieutenant Thrix asked. I believe so, Nara replied, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her caution. Allura, record everything. Thrix, maintain our position. The distortion pulsed, expanding slightly with each beat. With every expansion, the ship's systems flickered, as if something was interfering with their power source. Captain, I'm detecting something within the distortion, Allura reported, her voice barely above a whisper. It's moving. The view screen magnified the center of the breach. What Nara saw defied description. Shapes that seemed to fold in on themselves, geometries that should be impossible, colors that had no place in the visible spectrum, and movement, deliberate and purposeful, like a predator testing the strength of its cage. It's aware of us, Nara realized with sudden clarity. It can sense us watching. As if in response to her words, a tendril of not quite matter extended from the breach, reaching toward their ship. It wasn't physical in any conventional sense, more like a distortion of reality itself, bending space as it moved. Evasive maneuvers, Nara ordered. Get us away from it. Thrix's hands flew over the controls, but the ship responded sluggishly. The engines aren't responding correctly, Captain. It's as if the laws of physics are different near that thing. The tendril continued to reach for them, now just meters from the hull. Where it passed, space itself seemed to warp and twist, stars shifting position as light bent around it. Weapons? Nara asked desperately. Targeting systems offline, reported Security Officer Draff. I can't get a lock on something that doesn't fully exist in our reality. The tendril touched the hull, and immediately alarms blared throughout the ship. The metal itself seemed to scream, molecules vibrating at frequencies they were never designed to withstand. Hull breach in Section 3, Corvus shouted. Containment fields failing. Nara gripped her command chair as the ship shuddered violently. She had made a terrible mistake, driven by curiosity and pride. Now her crew would pay the price. A blinding flash of light cut through the chaos. Through the view screen, Nara saw a beam of concentrated energy slam into the tendril, severing its connection to the breach. The tendril dissipated, reality reasserting itself in its wake. A new ship had arrived, sleek, dangerous, and unmistakably human in design. Solarian vessel, this is Captain Maya Rodriguez of the Earth Alliance vessel Lightbringer. A voice announced over their communication system. We've temporarily neutralized the entity, but the breach is still active. Withdraw immediately while we contain it. Nara didn't hesitate. Thrix set course away from the breach, maximum safe speed. As they retreated, Nara watched the human vessel approach the breach. It fired a series of precisely calculated energy pulses into the distortion, each one causing the tear to contract slightly. It was like watching a surgeon meticulously closing a wound. "They've done this before," Allura murmured, watching the procedure. Many times, when the breach had shrunk to a mere pinpoint, the human vessel deployed a small satellite that positioned itself next to the distortion. A containment beacon, Nara guessed, to monitor for future activity. The human ship turned toward them, approaching at a deliberate pace that conveyed neither aggression nor particular haste. "Captain Vess," Rodriguez's voice came through again. "I'd like to speak with you. In person, if possible." 20 minutes later, Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Celestial Seeker. She was tall for a human, with dark skin and eyes that seemed to evaluate everything they fell upon. She wore a uniform similar to Commander Chen's, but with additional insignia that Nara couldn't interpret. "You're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish," Rodriguez said without preamble. "Probably both." "I had to understand," Nara replied simply. Rodriguez's expression softened slightly. "That's very human of you. Our scientists said the same thing, right before they opened the first breach." "What are they?" Nara asked. Rodriguez sighed, running a hand through her short-cropped hair. "We call them the void entities. They exist in what you might call the spaces between spaces, dimensions that run parallel to our own, but operate on entirely different physical laws. The breaches are tiers in the membrane that separates our reality from theirs. And they're intelligent. In a way we can barely comprehend," Rodriguez confirmed. "They perceive our universe as we might perceive a two-dimensional drawing, a curiosity, something to poke and prod. But their poking destroys our reality on a fundamental level." "How did humans discover them first?" Allura asked from her station. "Other species have been traveling space far longer." "Speed and recklessness," Rodriguez answered with a wry smile. "Humans developed faster than light travel later than most species, so we pushed it harder, faster. Our early jump drives tore through space in ways that created vulnerabilities. By the time we realized what was happening, we'd created dozens of breaches throughout our territory." Nara felt a chill run through her. "How many are there now?" "Hundreds," Rodriguez said grimly. "Each one constantly monitored, contained when they become active. It's why we stopped expanding. Every new human colony, every jump drive activation near a thin spot, risks creating new tiers. And you've kept this secret from the rest of the galaxy," Nara said, not accusingly but with new understanding. Rodriguez's eyes met hers. "What would have happened if we told everyone?" "Panic. Military responses, or worse, other species deciding to study the breaches themselves." "Like we just did," Nara acknowledged. "Exactly like you just did." Rodriguez gestured toward the view screen, where the contained breach was still visible as a faint distortion. "This one was dormant until your ship approached. Your scanning equipment, your consciousness, something about you caught their attention." Nara was silent for a long moment, processing the implications. Humans hadn't withdrawn from galactic affairs out of arrogance or fear. They had sacrificed their expansion, their potential relationships with other species, to stand guard against something most of the galaxy didn't even know existed. "What will you do now?" she finally asked. "I've seen what you're hiding. Will you silence us?" Rodriguez looked genuinely surprised. "Silence you? No, Captain Vess. That's not who we are." She stepped closer, her expression earnest. "But I am asking you to consider what you'll tell your people. The truth could lead others to seek out breaches, more ships, more curious scientists, more potential disasters. Nera considered her options. Her duty to the Confederacy demanded full disclosure. Her scientific integrity required accurate reporting. But her conscience. "I will tell them that human space remains closed for a reason," she said slowly. "That what lies beyond their border is a danger to us all, and that humanity stands between us and that danger." Rodriguez nodded. "Will they believe you without evidence?" "I have sensor data that could inspire others to follow your path," Rodriguez interrupted, "to seek out breaches of their own." Nera felt the weight of the decision before her. Then, with deliberate movements, she accessed her console and transferred the sensor readings to a secured file. "This data will be classified at the highest level," she declared. "Available only to the High Council, with my recommendation that no further expeditions be attempted." She looked up at Rodriguez. "Will that satisfy your concerns?" The human captain smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her face. "It will. And it opens another possibility." "Which is?" "Cooperation," Rodriguez said. "Limited, careful, but real. Your people now know about the threat. Perhaps, with proper precautions, the Solarians could help us monitor the boundaries, develop better containment technologies." Nera felt a surge of unexpected hope. "You would trust us with this?" "Trust must begin somewhere," Rodriguez replied. "And you've already demonstrated both curiosity and wisdom, a rare combination in any species." As the human captain prepared to return to her vessel, she paused at the bridge doorway. "The void entities are drawn to consciousness, Captain Vess, to minds that seek to understand them. Be careful what you seek to know." After Rodriguez departed, Nera stood at the viewport for a long time, watching as the human vessel resumed its patrol. The stars looked different to her now, the darkness between them no longer empty but potentially thin, vulnerable. "Set course for Solarian space," she finally ordered. "We have a report to deliver." And as the celestial seeker turned away from the boundary of human space, Nera understood at last why the galactic maps ended where humanity began. Not because humans were dangerous, but because they had chosen to contain the danger, to be the guardians at the edge of something terrible. The lonely sentinels, standing watch so the rest of the galaxy could sleep in peace.